What's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time, hi, my name is Natalie and this is my channel, Music to Makeup. If you've been around for a minute, what's up, fam? It's good to see you. So today's video, I'm going to be talking about 6 fatal flaws when it comes to a relationship and someone you're in a relationship with. And this is also from the book, Are You the One for Me? Knowing who's right and avoiding who's wrong. So I've already done 2 videos based off the information in this book. The first one was the 6 biggest mistakes we make in the beginning of a relationship, and then the second one was the 10 types of relationships that won't work. So this one is the 6 fatal flaws. This is a really good book. It has a lot of good information in it. So she talks about how, you know, of course, nobody's perfect. We all have flaws, and just because someone may have one of these or more, it doesn't mean that the relationship is completely doomed. But these are some flaws that have the potential to be fatal and to ruin a relationship. Number 1, addiction. So how can addictions hurt your relationship? The physiological harm that addictive substances cause is well documented, but you need to understand the emotional harm as well. The first problem is when you love someone with an addiction, you are in a love triangle. You, your partner, and whatever he is addicted to. If your partner has an addiction, he's in love with something other than you. The alcohol, the drugs, etc. He is, in effect, cheating on you. That substance is your rival. It will take his time, his attention, and his spirit away from you. You will end up hating it as much as you would hate another woman, or if you're male, another man. Here's the second point. Loving an addict also means loving someone who is a slave. He is enslaved to drugs, alcohol, sexual addictions, gambling, and some activity that has become his master. The third negative effect is that they have on your relationship is that they interfere with your partner's ability to be intimate with you. Addictive substances numb one's ability to feel. That's one of the reasons people drink the alcohol or smoke the joint. They don't like how they feel and want to feel better. Only better means more numb. And I'm sure you all have heard of like whiskey dick, or, you know, I know like if guys are on cocaine, sometimes they won't be able to get an erection. So if you're in love with someone who drinks alcohol specifically, be prepared to deal with the possibility of inconsistent and unpredictable behavior, outbursts of anger and violence, consistent depression, irresponsibility, emotional deadness, emotional unavailability, lack of sexual desire or inability to perform properly, fighting and bickering, frequent bad moods, lots of ups and downs in the relationships. So I have dated an alcoholic before, and I would completely agree with that. He was extremely irresponsible. He was supposed to be splitting rent with me, and there was one time he got paid on Friday, and he left for the entire weekend, didn't even tell me he was leaving. I didn't hear from him the entire weekend. And he came back and said he went to like go see his daughter in Georgia, and his entire paycheck was gone. Who knows if that was even fucking true, but he would do stuff like that. He was definitely emotionally unavailable. And there were times where there was the inability to perform because he was so drunk. If your partner is an addict, number 1, tell your partner that you refuse to live with an addict any longer. Number 2, tell him you will stay with him only if he agrees to get some help and takes action immediately. Number 3, tell him that if he does not get help immediately, you are leaving and not coming back. Number 4, stick to your word, and if your partner does not get immediate help, do not give him another chance. Leave. So alcoholics are definitely, a lot of them can be, angry alcoholics. The one I was dating definitely was. So some of the reasons that people may grow up like that are they were physically, verbally, or sexually abused as a child and stored up their rage inside, letting it out as an adult when they finally feel safe. They felt unloved or abandoned as a child, either through divorce, an absent parent, or the death of a parent, and act out that childhood rage as adults when they meet people who love them. They felt powerless as a child. They had alcoholic parents they couldn't save. They watched helplessly as one parent abused the other. They never had permission to express their feelings, and as adults, they compensate for that powerlessness by controlling others with their anger. So why might you attract an angry partner? Here are some reasons. You had one or more angry parents as a child, and you have anger and love closely associated in your mind. If you grew up with a rageaholic and were accustomed to many of the symptoms I just listed, you may have an extremely high tolerance for angry behavior since it was normal in your household. Your emotional programming may say, people who love me get angry with me. So when you meet a partner who yells a lot or loses control, and although you may not like his behavior, you don't think he has a big problem. Sadly, people who were physically or verbally abused as children often grow up to be battered spouses. They can become batterers, which we'll talk about later. Or you have very low self-esteem and are an easy victim for an abusive partner. If your self-esteem is low and you live with a high degree of powerlessness, you'll be a perfect partner for a rageaholic since you are probably easily intimidated and upset. Or you have a difficult time expressing your own anger. I believe that we unconsciously attract our opposites as partners in order to heal the imbalances in our own personality. I believe that too. The man who is emotionally shut down may attract a highly emotional woman who cries on a regular basis. The woman who can't express any anger or negativity may attract a man who is overly angry. So, anger was fatal flaw number 2. Fatal flaw number 3 is a victim consciousness. Victim consciousness is an attitude some men and women adopt towards the events in their life and attitudes that blame others for their problems. Victims enjoy suffering. Holding on to their pain gives them the illusion that they have power over those who have hurt them. So victims don't take responsibility for the events or circumstances in their life. Unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but I used to have a victim consciousness. I blamed everybody and anything around me. And I eventually recognized that it was a negative belief that I had learned in childhood and that I needed to start taking responsibility for my own actions. So they feel sorry for themselves, they complain, eat, sleep, become depressed. They do everything but take action to improve the situation. Try suggesting to a victim what he or she should do to feel better or solve a problem, and you will get a list of reasons why none of those things will work. Some victims will expect you to rescue them and solve out their problems for them. Others don't expect anything but sympathy, since the only way they know how to get attention is to have someone feel sorry for them. Victims spend their time complaining about what's wrong rather than doing something to change it. Victims are experts at blaming others for their problem. From a victim's point of view, it's always someone else's fault that things are the way they are. Victims blame their parents, ex-spouses, children's, friends, health, the economy, or whatever for the fact that they're not happy and fulfilled in their lives today. Some victims blame overtly and are honest about their resentment. Some blame covertly, never actually expressing anything negative, but simply not taking responsibility for fixing their own life. Victims see life as an adversarial situation. It's the world against me, the victim thinks. A victim perceives others as existing for the purpose of making him miserable, ruining his chances, interfering with his happiness, and disappointing him. For many victims, this was true as a child, but when he projects that perception onto his adult relationships, he inevitably sets others up to fail him. Some victims go so far as to choose unsuitable partners who victimize them, only proving to themselves that they are indeed victims. Often victims will have only other victims as friends, since only they can truly understand. I think the most perfect example of someone who has a victim mentality is Khloe Kardashian. She picks these men who you can tell by their past that they're not like good, loyal, dependable men. And then when they cheat on her, she's like, oh my God, poor me. Because she feels like that's the only way she can get as much attention as, her sisters. So what to do if you're in love with a victim? If you become involved with someone who possesses this fatal flaw, it's essential that you confront this issue with him or her, even though it will undoubtedly make your partner very uncomfortable. People involved with victims learn the hard way that in time, your sympathy for them turns into apathy. Okay, fatal flaw number 4 is control freak. Does your partner always have to have things his way, and if he doesn't, it becomes very upset? Do you live in fear of displeasing your partner by doing the things the wrong way? Do you feel criticized, judged, and constantly scrutinized by your partner? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you might be in love with a control freak. Control freaks have a difficult time opening up and showing you their vulnerable and emotional side. Control freaks don't like to admit that they need you. Control freaks need you so much they want to control all your time, becoming highly possessive and jealous. Control freaks can become easily upset, expressing either anger or hurt when they don't get their way or feel out of control. Control freaks can be compulsive about their living habits, routine, work, etc., and therefore be very difficult to live with. Control freaks can attempt to control the choices and habits of those around them, coworkers, friends, children, and you. Control freaks don't like being told what to do. It makes them feel out of control. Control freaks may have sexual problems, either a difficult time letting go in bed, an attachment to a particular idea of how sex should be, a need to control you, but a resistance to losing control himself. Control freaks have a hard time relaxing, whether after work, on weekends, or on vacations. They may be workaholics. Control freaks can be very impatient and irritable. Control freaks may become very domineering and critical parents, since by definition, babies and young children are beyond their control. So, why might you be attracted to a control freak? You had a very controlling mother or father, and therefore you associate love with control. You feel somewhat powerless yourself and mistake your partner's addiction to control for power and purpose. You are a victim looking for someone to tell you what to do and take charge of your life for you. Your last partner was passive, weak, and wimpy, and you've made the mistake I talked about in Chapter 5, choosing a partner in reaction to a previous partner. You were physically, sexually, or verbally abused as a child and only see yourself relating to others when they're in control and you're afraid of them. You're a control freak yourself and have attracted your own mirror image. This fatal flaw is one of the most difficult to cure, since by definition a control freak hates being out of control, and that includes admitting he has a problem, and especially being given an ultimatum by a partner. If you're in love with a control freak, don't kid yourself. If left untreated, the situation will only get worse with time. Your partner must acknowledge the problem and take action to improve it, or you should reconsider the relationship. I did date a control freak once, very briefly, and at first, I kind of found it endearing. you know, they like wanted to know like what I was wearing because they didn't want other guys looking at me, and I was like, oh, that's, you know, so cute. They want me to themselves. But then like it got to the point where they were like, no, you can't wear a skirt unless I'm with you. And he was shorter than me, like most guys are. He's like, you can't wear shoes with any type of heel. I was like, boy, bye. Fatal flaw number 5, sexual dysfunction. So she's divided sexual dysfunction into the following categories. Number 1, sexual addiction and obsession. Number 2, lack of sexual integrity. And number 3, sexual performance problems. So sexual addiction and obsession. Here are some warning signs. When you and your partner have sex, he almost always includes some form of fantasy, pornographic materials, verbal play acting, films, etc. Now, I am an advocate or fan, I don't know what you want to call it, of porn. I am. I've been single for a long time, and sometimes I just enjoy that with myself, and then I've also enjoyed it when I've been in a relationship with someone. However, if they are needing that every single time, no, that is a huge red flag. Your partner rents pornographic videotapes and watches them alone. I mean, I do that. Your partner needs you to dress up in sexual costumes on a regular basis in order to get turned on. I mean, I think dressing up is fun, but they said on a regular basis. Like, no, that's like, you know, an every once in a while type of thing. Your partner calls 900 sex numbers for phone sex. Okay, no. Your partner frequently goes to topless bars, strip clubs, or other types of sexual related facilities alone or with friends. You better not be going alone. Your partner is addicted to masturbation and engages in it many times a week or even daily in spite of your active sex life. Yeah, no, that would make me feel like it, you know, like, am I not good enough? Am I not satisfying you enough? Your partner is compulsive about a particular sexual fantasy, being tied up, having pain inflicted upon him, being raped, raping, etc., which he uses to become aroused. I mean, I think all guys have fantasies, and unfortunately I think a lot of them do have to do with them being in some sort of control, like the being tied up, etc. It depends on how far it goes and how often they were wanting to do it. Your partner needs to have sex 1 or more times a day, every day, regardless of whether you're in the mood or not. Your partner enjoys seeing you engage in sex acts you find humiliating, such as anal sex, sadomasochism, etc. No, that's not okay. And when I was younger, I definitely would do things I wasn't comfortable with because I thought it would make the guy like me more. But no, don't ever do that. Your partner has sexual feelings for children that he acts on or fantasizes about. Oh, hell no. So here are some problems you might face when identifying and confronting someone with this fatal flaw. 1, you mistake your partner's sexual addiction for sexual interest in you. It's easy, especially in the beginning of a relationship, to get seduced and flattered by a partner's excessive sexual interest rather than seeing it for what it is, obsession with sex. 2, your partner makes you feel that your discomfort with his habits is your problem and that you have sexual hang-ups. I've had so many women ask me if I thought there was something wrong with them because they minded the fact that their partner wanted sex 3 times a day, or watched porno films whenever the wife left the house, or masturbated every morning in the shower while refusing to have sex with her. In each case, I would reassure these women that no, there was nothing wrong with them, but there was something wrong with their mate. Women who are used to being victims or to giving up their power often find themselves being talked out of their feelings in this way. Oh, their partners had told them that they were too conservative, too frigid, or too sexually boring. Number 3, you're embarrassed or frightened to confront the problem because you don't want to rock the boat. It's not easy to say to your husband, honey, I think you're a masturbation addict, or sweetheart, the fact that you have to watch porno films to get turned on really frightens me and I won't put up with it anymore. However, if you don't face the truth about your partner's sexual addictions, you'll destroy your relationship. You'll feel cheated on by your partner because he needs something other than you to become aroused. You'll feel insecure about your body, your sexuality, and your ability to satisfy your partner. Didn't I say that? You'll feel emotionally distant from your partner during sex, as if he's not completely there with you. You'll feel sexually used and manipulated rather than love. You'll feel angry and resentful towards your partner for not respecting your feelings. And you'll eventually feel turned off to sex, since for you it's associated with humiliation, control, and a feeling of inadequacy. So the second part of it is lack of sexual integrity. So it's related to the first in that your partner doesn't honor the sanctity of your monogamous relationship, in this case by leaking his sexual energy in someone else's direction. This includes flirting with other people, constant staring at other people's bodies, making sexual comments about your friends, strangers, etc. to you, making sexual comments to your friends, strangers, etc., inappropriate touching of other people, and actual sexual infidelity. So here are some ways that you may be in denial about this. Number 1, you dismiss your reactions by telling yourself, I'm just being paranoid. None of us like to appear overly possessive, so often if you notice your partner behaving in a way that makes you uncomfortable, you might ignore it rather than confront your mate. This may be especially true if, based on your emotional programming, you don't trust your own feelings or perceptions. Your partner may even minimize your feelings by calling you jealous or insecure. 2, you rationalize your feelings by telling yourself your partner's behavior isn't that bad. He never really does anything but look. She doesn't ever cheat. She just flirts with guys. These are comments from people attempting to talk themselves out of their discomfort. If you're afraid to confront your partner about his lack of sexual integrity, you might convince yourself that what he's really doing doesn't bother you that much. This may be especially true if you dislike conflict and have a difficult time expressing anger. 3, you tell yourself your partner will grow out of this behavior in time. He's probably just acting this way because we've only been together for a little while. If we're married, I'm sure he'll change. Don't kid yourself. If your partner doesn't treat you with respect in the beginning of a relationship, he won't suddenly learn respect later. Number 3, difficulty experiencing orgasm for women. When I teach women's seminars, this topic comes up all the time. Statistics tell us that over half of all women have difficulty achieving orgasm, and a smaller percent of women have never experienced it. Aside from having an unskilled man make love to you, the reasons for female impotence are similar to those I mentioned earlier regarding male impotence and premature ejaculation. Anger, fear of being controlled and going out of control. Being in control is the opposite of orgasm, which is a total letting go. If a woman has a problem with control, is feeling controlled by her partner, or has felt victimized by men in the past, she may have a difficult time losing control enough to have an orgasm. Like impotence, withholding orgasms from your partner is an unconscious way of saying, see, you can't even turn me on. You don't have any power over me. Wow. I am someone that is me. There are times, especially if I'm not comfortable with someone, or I just don't don't trust that person, my like psyche won't let myself and my body just like completely relax and lose control. But if I'm with someone like I trust and I really care about, then I'm able like to let that guard down and like release any control. Okay, fatal flaw number 6. Your partner hasn't grown up. The men and women with this fatal flaw have an adult side that refuses to behave in a responsible, mature manner, forcing you as the partner to take on the role of a parent. Here are some warning signs to look for to determine whether your partner hasn't fully grown up. Number 1, financial irresponsibility. I hate to admit it, but I've been in several relationships with men who were financially irresponsible, and like a typical rescuer, I didn't see it as a fatal flaw, but convinced myself my partner just wasn't a practical person. Practically infantile was more like it. Financial irresponsibility is a strong indicator that your partner has some deep emotional programming that needs to be changed in order for you to have a healthy relationship. So number 2, undependable. We don't expect a small child always to be on time, keep all of his promises, remember all of the rules, or do everything he says he will. A patient parent knows that her child is learning what it means to be responsible, and that at 3 or 4 the concept is still sinking in. But you should expect your adult partner to be dependable, and if he isn't, you're in love with someone who hasn't grown up. This is something that is huge for me. Someone who is dependable and consistent. Lack of dependability means your partner constantly makes promises to you and then breaks them. Your partner is frequently late for dates. Your partner is forgetful of important information you've told him. Your partner agrees to do things for you and often forgets. Your partner is a procrastinator, putting off doing things for as long as possible. You are hesitant to count on your partner since he lets you down so often. When you're in a relationship with someone who's undependable, you begin to act like a parent, reminding them of things they should be doing they should remember themselves, doing things for them they should be doing for themselves, and making excuses for their lack of dependability to your friends and family. You don't have much trust in or respect for your partner and will inevitably store up a great deal of anger and resentment. Number 3, they're unmotivated. Does your partner seem to have no direction or purpose in his life? Is your partner waiting for something outside himself to motivate him to take action? Does your partner have a difficult time making plans for the future? Does your partner put off making decisions of any kind? Is your partner still trying to figure out what he wants to do when he grows up, but he's over 30 years old? Does your partner have significant problems he's unwilling to face? Is your partner waiting for someone to give him his big break? So, like, I was a server and a bartender for a very, very long time, like throughout school. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're the same age as me and you're still a server, like, and you're not even like actively like pursuing something else, like, no, it's not gonna happen. Why people resist growing up. The resistance to responsibility isn't simply a bad habit. Rather, it's an unconscious response to circumstances that left your partner feeling robbed of his childhood. Your partner might exhibit this fatal flaw if he had to grow up too fast. He felt very controlled as a child. If your partner grew up in a family with lots of rules and strict discipline, he may rebel as an adult by ignoring the rules. Children who are angry at their controlling parents often grow up into adults who rebel against all authority figures, rules, protocol, legal systems, etc. That is so true. My best friend in high school, her parents were extremely, extremely strict. And like when she like would come over to my house, like she'd get wasted And then when we graduated, she went to school like in Boston. She was trying to get as far away from Florida as she possibly could, and she went off the chain. Like, she ended up getting kicked out for plagiarism. But yeah, she was like Girls Gone Wild type of shit. Fatal flaw number 7. Your partner is emotionally unavailable. So here are some warning signs that someone is emotionally unavailable. Number 1, your partner cannot show emotions. What's the point of being in a relationship with someone if he can't show you how he feels? If your partner can't share his feelings with you, your relationship will be shallow and frustrating. You'll become a human can opener trying to get your partner to open up all the time. That's not your job, it's his. You should expect your partner to be capable of demonstrating basic emotions such as happiness, sadness, disappointment, excitement, desire, and love. If he or she can't, they're not ready to be in a relationship with anyone. Remember, there's no such thing as someone who just isn't an emotional person. We're all emotional infants. Have you ever seen a baby who couldn't express his feelings? There's such a thing as someone who is emotionally damaged from childhood and has lost his ability to feel and show emotions. Number 2, your partner cannot or will not talk about feelings. We've seen that for many people, talking about feelings is difficult, especially if they were taught not to express their emotions as children. But if your partner refuses to even try learning to express himself or is just non-communicative, your relationship is going to be awful. Communication is one area where couples can really make a difference in their relationship if they are willing to learn how. Number 3, your partner can't open up or trust. When it comes to having a lasting relationship, good intentions don't count for much. You need to find someone willing to do what it takes to knock down their own protective walls. Fatal flaw number 8. Your partner hasn't recovered from past relationships. Number 1, your partner still carries tremendous anger and resentment towards his previous mate. One of the questions I always advise singles to ask prospective partners on a first date is, how do you feel about your ex-lovers? I definitely do that. If your date launches into a tirade about what a bitch his ex-wife is or bitterly denounces his ex-girlfriend as a slut who cheated on him, I would think long and hard before going out on a second date. As we saw earlier, that unresolved anger and blame will eventually be projected onto you. Your partner may not have recovered from his previous relationship enough to have a healthy relationship with you. He may need time to evaluate the events of the past and to take responsibility for his part in what occurred. There was someone that I dated for a while. He was actually a very large part of my life. And he had, I don't know, I'm trying to remember how recent it was. I mean, it wasn't that recent, but he had broken up with someone. He had been in a relationship for a long time. It was like the most, significant relationship he had had. And, he would talk to her on the phone, and he would borrow money from her. And I just thought that there were definitely no boundaries, and my intuition, my gut knew that he was still in love with her, but I just didn't want to admit it to myself. Fatal flaw number 9, emotional damage from childhood. So we all have, emotional damage from childhood, but when looking for fatal flaws, we need to ask ourselves 3 questions. Number 1, how severe was the emotional damage incurred by my potential partner when he was young? 2, is my partner aware of this emotional damage and how it affects his ability to function in a relationship? Number 3, is my partner actively working on himself to repair this emotional damage? Reading, therapy, seminars, etc. Your partner's willingness to face his emotional programming and take action to heal it will greatly diminish the effect any fatal flaw might have on your relationship. Okay, so I thought that there were 6 fatal flaws, but apparently there was 9. I hope you guys found this video somewhat helpful. You know, if you are single, you know, these are definitely things that you can kind of keep an eye out for. Or if you are in a relationship, you can kind of recognize if your partner has any of these fatal flaws. And if so, you know, are they working to, you know, try and overcome them? Yeah, let me know what you guys think about this topic, and tell me about any experiences you've had dating someone with one of these fatal flaws down in the comments below. Alright, I love you guys. I will see you in my next video. Bye.